So there you saw after his conviction in the state trial, Derek Chauvin alluding to some other legal matters, this federal case. Just to let you know, the charges that he is facing in federal court, the two federal charges against him allege that he violated George Floyd's rights by using unreasonable force and by acting with deliberate indifference when he pinned Floyd to the ground while Floyd cried for help and told officers that he could not breathe. Dina Dahl, law and crime legal analyst, is joining us this hour, and Mike Korbanics, our other legal analyst here on the network, is still with us. So, Dina, let me start by you and asking, are you surprised that Chauvin is expected to change his plea to guilty tomorrow morning?
I mean, no, because, these charges, although this is a federal case and the other one was state, I mean, it's about the same death of George Floyd, and he saw that he was just convicted in that case. I don't think it was actually very close. There was so much evidence against him. And we know he's trying to appeal that case as well. I mean, this is the first time I've heard actually anything remorseful from him. That's very interesting, and we'll see what he says about more to come. But essentially, it's very possible that he wants to put all of his focus on appealing his criminal case and hoping that a guilty plea in this federal case, will maybe, not, first of all, divert all of his resources. We know that he was trying to ask for a public appointed attorney for his criminal case in the state. So he doesn't have that many resources to apply to all these different cases.
So in addition to getting a lesser sentence by pleading guilty, there are some who say perhaps another motivation by Chauvin to plead guilty in this federal case is that if he was allowed to serve his sentences concurrently, perhaps he'd be allowed to serve them out in a federal prison. Why might that be something he would want to do over a state prison, Dina?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I imagine maybe it has to do with just the conditions. If he's thinking that the state, I imagine it's a very hostile environment where he is right now, right? He's a former law enforcement who has put criminals away for years, and he's in the locale, at least in the vicinity where he once worked. So I imagine he wants maybe to be a little bit more supervised, a little bit more separated from the public that he once served.
And that really, I guess, is the implication, what some have suggested, that, yeah, that would help him avoid crossing paths with some of the very people that he sent to jail. Dina, you mentioned earlier that, this could also signal that Chauvin and his team of attorneys really want to shift their focus to appealing his conviction. In the perhaps unlikely case that an appeal was successful, then what would happen with this federal plea if he, pled guilty to the federal cases? I mean, isn't it sort of contradictory?
Interesting. Well, yes, if you think of it in terms of he's accepting responsibility for it, like morally or ethically, sure, that's contradictory. But if you think of it as literally just a legal strategy, no, it's a completely separate case. And he can say in one case, hey, I'm appealing the verdict, and in the other, I'm going to, enter this guilty plea and do my sentence. So to that extent, it's not. But like I said, this was the first time I think that we heard, or at least I feel like I've heard, any sense of remorse from him and his thing that more is to come. So that's why it makes me think he may be using this a little bit as just a larger strategy as well. We'll see what happens. Again, whether or not he can afford his own legal team for his appeal, because the police union will not represent him for the appeal like they did for his trial. So he has to hire his own attorney. And there's been this dispute about whether or not he could afford one or whether or not he had to be appointed one. So he may not have this large team. He may not have the resources for this large team to help him with his appeal.
As you said, we'll see what happens, and he's going to change the plea, but we may not, we're likely not going to know the sentence still for a little while. So lots to watch in that case as we continue to monitor what's going on in the courtroom just about 20 miles away, where day 5 of the trial against Officer Kim Potter continues. Again, court is on recess there for probably another 5 minutes or so now. So we're going to take our break, and when we come back, we'll have much more on what's going on today in court. Be right back.